Welcome, everyone. Thanks so much for being here today. It's a joy to be with you and see all of your beautiful faces here. Can you hear me okay?
It may have been turned off.
There, now it's on. Okay. So, welcome. We changed things around. It's a little bit different than what's in the bulletin because Lori and I are experimenting with you. We have a new program that we're doing called Music and Message Fusion. And so we're going to incorporate the music as part of the message. And so thank you for being our beta testers today. So today my talk is the wisdom of conscious choices. And you know, we often have memories of something we were told when we were children that we hang on to, and it's still working in us as adults. Can anyone relate to that? You have something that, yes, you have something that you hold on to. Well, my memory is when I was in elementary school, I went to Catholic school. And one day, the Sister Mary came and she was doing a teaching and she said, well, there's heaven and hell, and then there's purgatory. And purgatory is a place, if you don't confess your sins before you die, purgatory is this place you go to. And it's a place of like nothing. There's just nothing. Now, to a 8 or 9-year-old, that's like terror. And how could there be a place of nothing? So you can't see your loved ones, you don't see God, you don't see anybody, it's just this place of nothing. And that really bothered me, and so I wanted to know, well, how do you get out of purgatory? You know, what do you have to do to get out of purgatory? Well, how do you see your family? How long is eternity? You know, for a child, that's a long time. But the only answer I got was, we may not understand, we won't understand until we get to heaven. But you don't understand, if I'm in purgatory, I'm not in heaven, how am I going to know what to do? And I couldn't get an answer. And so that stuck with me, that why would a God that loves me put me in a place of nothing? So over the years, I forgot about it, and I had many other questions along the way, but then there were football games and dances and first loves and broken hearts, and I just moved on. And as a teenager, I was out late one night and didn't feel like going to church the next day. And I announced to my family I wasn't going to go to church. And my dad said, if you live here, you go to church.
I've heard that.
And yes. You can relate. And I had this light bulb. This is my parents' religion. That I was inquisitive. I wanted to know and understand things. And I couldn't get the answers that I needed. This was my parents' religion. This wasn't mine. And so something clicked in my head that I was going to do what I needed to do to find my way. And so it happened years later when I moved to California. I moved to San Diego and I found Science of Mind. And I don't know about you, the first time you walked into a Unity church or whatever church it was where you felt connected and you felt home. And I felt it was a place where I was understood. And so I was so grateful. But sometimes we have to leave the teaching from our childhood to find what we need in our lives. And this change can feel daunting sometimes because we don't understand it. It's a puzzle. But there's many ways to connect with God, and we each have to find our own way. So the most important thing I learned when I started studying Science of Mind was that I needed to pay attention and be aware of the self, that I was an individualized expression of the one life. I was an individualized embodiment of God. And so I needed to be aware of myself. And I followed that and I did that, not because in Catholicism, I was afraid of being a bad person. But here I wasn't afraid of being a bad person. I wanted to follow because I wanted to be lifted out of pain and suffering. There's always some kind of emotional turmoil or something that was going on, and I wanted to be lifted out of that. So observing the self. So when I observe the self, we pay attention. So I learned to pay attention to my thoughts and my emotions. And to that pesky voice in the back of the mind that's always criticizing, critiquing. Anyone else relate to that? Yeah. So the key to having more mastery is to be conscious of what we're hearing, aware of what we're believing. And Louise Hay teaches us that regardless of the problem, the situations that we face are a result of our inner thoughts and what we're believing. The inner thought produces an emotion, and we attach ourselves to that emotion. And the more mindful we are of our thoughts, the sooner we can acknowledge them. And so, 3 things that we pay attention to when we're becoming observers. What am I feeling? And I know you already know this. You wouldn't be here unless you already know this, because this is what we teach. This is what we study, is to really understand the self. So what am I feeling? If I'm feeling sad, well, what am I believing if I'm sad? Well, maybe that no one loves me. And what do I want instead? I want to know that I am loved. And so that I want to be the one to express love in the world. I want to be that presence of love in the world. And as we give, so we receive. And we can't see our beliefs, but our emotions are indicators that they're there. And someone that pushes our buttons is a great teacher. You've already found that out, right? Somebody that pushes our buttons. And so when I moved to San Diego and I found this church, I immediately started volunteering there. And I was the class registrar. And there was someone who I was taking over for her. She used to be, and then she went on to do something else. Her name was Linda. Well, Linda, I could never do anything right for Linda. Do you ever know anyone like that? I couldn't do anything right. She was always correcting me. And I think the thing we dislike the most is to be corrected, at least for me. She was always correcting me and telling me how to do it better and what to do. And it just bothered me. And I just grumbled about Linda all the time. I would go home and I would think about Linda and I would say, why did she say that to me today? And what is she going to say to me tomorrow? And I was just always thinking about Linda. And I was obsessed with Linda. And my poor boyfriend had to hear about Linda every night. He heard about Linda. Later that year, I enrolled in a class that they were offering at the church. And something happened in that class. I did a healing piece, and I did this healing teaching that brought me to this real place of peace. And I just felt different. I felt changed. And when I got to the center on Monday, there was Linda. And I didn't have that same feeling towards her anymore. And so we gathered in our circle. We would circle up in the morning to do a prayer before we got started. And I made a comment like, wow, you look great today. I really like you today. And everybody started laughing because they understood the power of spiritual practice. They understood what happens when we engage in that practice and something is lifted from us and transformed. I was friends with Linda after that. She never bugged me anymore. And she still told me what to do. She still told me what to do, but I was at peace with it. I could smile at her and relate to what it was she was telling me. Of course, whatever happens years later, we're on the other side of that goal. So I was the one that pushed buttons for other people later on in life. But when we run away from what causes us pain, without looking at the cause repeats itself. It happens over again. So we can't escape that. It's going to follow us. Where there's a saying, wherever I go, there I am. Because wherever I go, that belief that I have is going to follow me. So imagine the freedom we would have if we didn't run away, but if we took the time to process, to explore, to learn more about what is it that I'm learning? What is it that I need to know? That's what we want to know. I am willing to accept responsibility for my emotions. So when I'm willing to accept responsibility, then I can take action with them. Would you repeat that after me? I am willing to accept responsibility for my emotions. Let's say that together. I am willing to accept responsibility for my emotions. Because whatever we're responsible for, we can change. If I'm afraid of it, I become the victim. So our work is to be the observer. And I neglected to say, the whole day today is about conscious choices, because this is the foundation work for the work we're going to do this afternoon in the class. That this is also from one of the chapters of my book. But this is what we're going to work on. The first thing we have to do is to be the observer. We have to pay attention. So being the observer is not for the tenderhearted. It demands looking within and paying attention and being willing to surrender. Sometimes we wonder if it's worth the journey, but it is, because anytime we can have more freedom, it's worth the journey. So when we practice being the observer, we're building consciousness. And consciousness is not just what we put into our minds. Eric Butterworth says it's also to the degree to which we have discovered and released our own imprisoned splendor and gotten into the flow. When we are willing to be the observer, when we are willing to build consciousness, we open our hearts. We move into an awareness of oneness with love. And haven't you noticed that when you allow your heart to open, when you allow your heart to soften, that you move into something greater? And so Lori has a beautiful song, and she's right here.
I just wanted to add to that, listening to your story. I think we all have a story of how we found new thought, right? I was really, and I also was raised Catholic, but I knew I had this longing, this for something, but I couldn't name it, and I wasn't really getting it, So for me, it was the journey from the head to the heart. And when I found a new thought, I was out there doing so many things in the world, like things that I was just, I went to grad school in Boston, a conservatory, and then I worked on cruise ships, and I found all these things to achieve and to grow, and it was great. But I was also feeling underneath it just, a loneliness and something that I couldn't quite name. And so when I was home, from my travels, I remembered hearing about a certain spiritual community, and that's when I started. And all of that, it was really about consciousness, but mainly the heart, because I tend to be so in my head. and this song that I'm going to sing for you, it's called "Come Back to Your Heart." And ironically, it was written when I was working on a Kickstarter for my first spiritual album. And I was getting so into the whole, I think you might remember this, Lori Davin. And I was so trying to achieve this success and get my Kickstarter funded and my album, and I completely lost sight of what it was that I was really doing, and it was it was a gift that I wanted to express and put out there, but I was getting so caught up in the needing to be successful, and it was taking so much away from my experience, the joy of it, the fulfillment. So I wrote this song, which ended up on the album, but I wrote it during the whole process of the Kickstarter, so I'd like to share that with you. I see that look in your eyes. You're so far away, closed up tight. Dark clouds distorting the view. All that doubt pushing through. Go ahead, ride the waves that you feel. In time, you'll return to what's real. I know you'll come back to your heart, all that you are, all that you are. Oh. Take a good look around and sink your feet in the ground. Let the earth embrace you, the air bless you and take you. Hear it whisper a sweet, sweet song, reminding you that you belong. Oh, come back to your heart, all that you are, all that you are. Sometimes you just take your hand right here on your heart. If you're in the midst of something, you just want a really quick way to center. It works for me. Just breathing into that. It's a really quick way to just center and get back to what matters. Let the earth embrace you, air bless you and take you. Hear it whisper a sweet, sweet song, reminding you that you belong. Oh, come back to your heart, all that you are, all that you are. Oh, come back, embrace you, all that you are, all that you are, all that you are.
So what happens with music and message is that it's opening our hearts, that it's raising our vibration. So you're not only listening, but that you also have an opportunity to hear Lori's beautiful voice, and it's resonating in you. Did you feel that while she was singing? And she has a voice of an angel. We're spiritual sisters. I forgot that you were raised Catholic. I think we were sisters. Yeah, yeah. But that's the purpose of why we wanted to do this, is because something powerful happens when we can make that connection. So thank you, Lord. That's awesome. So come back to your heart, come back to that opening, come back to that awareness, come back to that oneness, because we come back to love, and God is love. And so how do we stay in that place of awareness and consciousness? That's the practice, right? How do we stay there? Well, the first one is discipline. Anyone else having a difficult time focusing lately? Do you have trouble staying on a task for more than a few minutes? Do you blame yourself thinking, oh, I'm lazy, or I'm undisciplined? Here is the good news. First of all, you are not alone. This is not in my book, I just read this. Someone told me about this book called Stolen Focus, and it's Johann Hari, if I'm saying it correctly, is the author. Stolen Focus, Why You Can't Pay Attention and How to Think Deeper. And he did a lot of research on this topic. And scientists have just investigated, for instance, scientists investigated how often an average college student pays attention to anything. They put tracking software on their computers and monitored what they did in a typical day. They discovered on average the student would switch tasks once every 65 seconds. Wow. The median amount of time they focused on anything was 19 seconds. And a different study observed how, now they said don't get cocky as an adult, because the longest time the average adult working in an office stayed on one task was 3 minutes. And so in his book, he says, we are being programmed to not pay attention. We have so many distractions, and we blame it on the phone. But it's bigger than the phone. He has 12 causes. In his book, he has 12 causes for why we're in this situation and how to move through it. And that's not what I'm talking about today, but that's another talk. But one of them is I found years ago in my research, and it's called something called Kaizen. And Kaizen is a simple technique that is embraced in Japanese culture, and it's taking tiny steps. So the author, Dr. Robert Moore, he wrote a book called One Step Can Change Your Life. And so he had a client, and she wasn't exercising, and she found it very difficult to exercise. And he said, I want you to march in front of the TV for 1 minute. Can you do that? And sure, she could do that for 1 minute. So the idea is I do it 1 minute today, and then I grow that until I get up to my 30 minutes of exercise. So taking one small step. So that's where we can begin with the discipline, is one small step. And on the spiritual journey, sometimes we think we have to devote hours to prayer and meditation and journaling and spiritual practices. And I tell my clients, take 3 minutes. Just take 3 minutes. There's a wonderful app called Triple Flame that you can get. And you can do 3 minute, 5 minute, 10 minute meditations. And it's your choice of silent, guided, or Om. And it's a beautiful meditation, and it's a wonderful way to do that, and it's time. And there's so many meditation apps right now. Meditation has boomed again because we're all under so much stress. So it's become a booming topic again, and practice. And so how do we build on discipline? we have to have patience. And so often people will ask, students will ask me, and my clients will ask me, well, how long does it take to change? I don't know. Time seems to take forever when we're waiting. But if we can release it, it happens in a moment. So time moves so slowly when we don't like our circumstances. And I was thinking about this with prayer. Have you noticed this with traditional prayer? The traditional prayer, Lori, if you remember from Catholic Church, was beseeching prayer. That was always asking for something. And so there were three types. The first one is, I'm a good girl. I'm a good girl, so good things should happen, right? And then the other one was, let's make a deal. I was always making a deal with God. If you help me pass this test, I will not eat candy for a week. Somehow candy and Catholicism went. That was the biggest punishment I could think of, was not eat candy for a week. Of course, I forgot about it 10 minutes after I passed the test or whatever happened. So, and the other one is beam me up, Scotty. Dear God, just get me out of this. I don't know how, just get me out of this. But we know that we, as the observers, we're going to pay attention. We're going to pay attention. We're going to have that place of consciousness and alignment. And alignment, however that comes, listening to beautiful music or doing your prayer work or sitting in meditation, that lifts our vibration, puts us into a greater alignment. And so the third thing that happens is having compassion. And that we have, as a society, we place such a high value on validating ego. We take a lot of pride in what we accomplish. Or like Lori was saying, you just had to go get it. I've got to go get this. But our self-worth is not defined by our accomplishments of the ego, but it comes from within as we learn our intrinsic value. And unless we have compassion for ourselves, we can be pulled away. We can be swayed so easily by what we see in someone else, by comparing ourselves to someone or needing acknowledgement from someone. We're swayed so easily. So when we have compassion for ourselves, we learn not to judge ourselves, not to judge our mistakes, but to be in appreciation of who we are. So the spiritual principle underlying the observing the self is change, and many of you know this one, change my thinking, change my life. When I'm able to change my thinking, I can change the circumstances. And so how do we perceive life? Are we perceiving life as the victim or the student? When I was with my coworker Linda, I was the victim because she was doing something to me. She was making me miserable. But once I rose above that, then I was the student. I saw her in her beauty. I could see her in a different light. So we are always making choices. And a quality life takes conscious attention to focus and looking deep within. And so by using the tools of meditating, journaling, praying, and we're going to do some practices this afternoon about how to connect and how to go to that deeper place. When we write in a journal, we can be the observer, we can see what we've written and pay attention to that. In meditation, we're mindful and we practice mindfulness. We pay attention to our thoughts. We watch our thoughts. We're aware of our thoughts. To live a life of conscious awareness, we learn to be aware of emotions and behaviors. We learn to be less reactive. We respond rather than react and find more balance. And when we have compassion for ourselves, we have compassion for others. we can identify the common thread of beliefs, we can have greater peace. Instead of being reactive to the world, we take dominion in the world. And when we take dominion in the world, we can soar. And I bet Lori has a song about that.
I'm just going to add to that a little. Yes, the song. You basically set it up. But another practice that Christine has helped me with is creating a covenant, which is I find that I learn the most during transition. And like if I'm in a transition in my life and I need to figure out where I am and what I would like to experience versus what I am experiencing, that is a covenant, just making an agreement with the universe and yourself, and setting a real strong intention, putting it in writing. So this song came from actually one of those times, and let's face it, I don't know about you, but for me, I find myself often in transition. I think that if we're on the path and we're committed to growing, that we're always in some sort of transition. So this song is kind of about that and our conscious choice and how we want to experience life. I'm just going to cue up the band here. Thank you to my partner, Eric, for creating these tracks of music. Been weighed down by thoughts and words and circumstance. It's time to ask my soul to dance. Let go of all those hidden things. Take a breath and stretch these wings. Fly on, fly. Fresh and still lifting me. Feel so alive. Fly on, fly. Powered by the sun inside and on high. Oh, yeah. Things they fall right into place. No more pushing, no more chains. Be free, my spirit, do your thing. I'll step aside and let you sing. Fly, oh fly, oh fly. Fresh and still lifting me, makes me feel so alive. Fly, oh fly. Powered by the sun inside and on high. Oh, fly, yeah. Oh. When I doubt, when I'm afraid, I have to trust the path is made. Listen every day to hear that call. Oh, rise above my mind. living inside. Oh my, oh, I'll stretch my wings and fly.
How I fly is being out in nature. You know, find the thing that lets you soar, find the thing that connects you, that puts you in touch with your oneness. That's what we want, is to be the observer, to have that awareness. And what do I need to do to get back there? What do I need to do to get to my oneness? What do I need to do to get back to my source, back to my divinity? But when we practice awareness, we find calmness. And we discover clarity. With clarity about any behavior or thought that's keeping us limited, I can develop courage. Courage to make changes, to step forward. With clarity and courage, I can find greater connection to my divine self, my divinity, and to the world around me. Then we can live a grace-filled life. Get ready to observe a grace-filled life. So let's take that into meditation right now. I invite you to just take a breath and go within. Notice your body. Notice any tension. Notice any place where you're hanging on. Breathe into that and release. Gently release any thoughts that pop up. Let them float away. Bring your attention back to the breath. Breathe into the presence of your heart. See your heart filled with white, beautiful light. Breathe into that light. Breathe into that love. Imagine it expanding and filling your body, the room, filling the neighborhood, expanding out into our city, our state, and around the globe. Know that you are loved. You can come back to this peace anytime you want with your conscious attention. And so I'll close with a prayer. I just give grateful thanks for this reminder, this opportunity to be in the oneness, to recognize this one life, this one presence, this one power, this infinite grace. And as I embrace it, as I align with it, I know that I am one with it. I know that I live it, I breathe it, I move with it. And as I allow myself to be the observer of life, I'm aware of the beauty around me. I'm aware of the love and peace around me. I'm aware of the infinite blessings around me. And as I know that, as I feel that, as I connect with that, I share that vibration, that vibration goes out into the world. That vibration of love goes out to any place of darkness, to any place where there's unrest around the world, where there's war, there's unrest, where there is sadness, where there is despair. That light goes to lift up those beloveds, to be the light, to lift up, to embody the oneness. So I give thanks for all of this with a grateful heart, releasing this word, and together we affirm, and so it is.